Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Paddle Monster newsletter. Last week, we looked at um, issues associated with the catch and a process that you could go through during your um, winter off-season, either paddling or being off the water altogether, just by looking at video of yourself and video of the pros, a process that you could go through to help make positive changes to your catch. And so this week, I'd like to focus on the next part of the stroke, which is the pull. Um, and first of all, by looking at three of the most common errors that paddlers make in the pull. I think the first most common error is that they don't commit fully to the stroke during the pull. So they catch the water, and instead of continuing to load body weight onto the catch and get more power on the blade, they're a little bit timid and they stay kind of inside the rails of the board rather than getting out on over the water and on top of the paddle. And so their stroke isn't as loaded or as powerful as it could be. So that's the first mistake that especially more novice paddlers commonly make. Or perhaps a paddler that's on a board that's too narrow for them, or that's just a little bit timid or balance challenged. Um, the next mistake that people make is that they lose blade angle too quickly during the pull. So instead of maintaining a nice sort of positive angle and then slowly losing that positive angle, spending a lot of time where the blade's near vertical and then not much time where the blade goes negative, their blade turns over from positive to negative really quickly in the pull, and it spends very little time at vertical or close to vertical, which is the most effective part of the stroke. So that's an error that people tend to make. And the third error that people make in the pull is where they may well load really well. So they may well get out over the water and on top of their paddle and load really well, commit to the blade really well. But at the point where they've finished loading, where they can't load onto the blade anymore, where they don't bend over anymore, where their legs don't bend anymore, where their hips don't drive back anymore, they need to start to unload. But instead of that, they get stuck in that position. They kind of stay down in that bent over position, and the paddle keeps moving. And the only thing that's moving their paddle in that case is their hands. So they go from using lots of body weight and big muscles to just using very small muscles and no extra body weight to keep the blade moving while they get stuck in that bent over downward position. So those are the three big mistakes that people make during the pull. And if you watch video, like last week, I encouraged you to find video of the pro athletes and find as much video footage as you can. And it's the first thing to do is follow them all on social media because they're posting good video all the time. And then you do screen captures of it, and then you start looking at it. And you look at it in slow-mo, and then you look at it frame by frame, and you look at it frame by frame forward and frame by frame backwards, and you pause it at different parts of the stroke, of the catch, and different parts of the pull, and then into the exit. And you really see what they're doing. And more importantly than that, you're going to see that all the different pros, although they look different when we see them paddling fluidly in real time, when we start to look at them in this granular level where we're looking at their video and we're pausing it at different parts of the stroke, we're looking at it at frame by frame, we're going to see that in two or three parts of the stroke, they almost all look identical. And those parts being the catch, just where the blade's about to go in the water. We talked about that last week. The other part is during the pull, the point where their blade is basically vertical or close to vertical, and they've finished loading. They're not going to load anymore. They're not going to bend over and get on the paddle anymore. Their hips aren't going to go behind them anymore. Their legs aren't going to bend anymore. They've finished loading. And this is the point where the good athletes immediately start to unload. And if you look at the top athletes in that position, they're almost all in this, you could almost like take still photos of them and then just overlap them one on top of the other, and you'd almost just see one silhouette because they're mirroring each other as they pass through that point really, really closely. And so the thing to do is to get all this video and see these trends and understand these trends, and then get the most recent video you have of yourself. And if you're on the water through the winter, you can go out and collect some video tomorrow. If you're not, then hopefully you can find the last video that somebody took of you during the summer, and compare that with what you see in the pros. And you're going to start to see where you're making some mistakes, right? And so once you've identified your mistakes, and it's likely going to be one of those three that I mentioned, then you can start to think about how you're going to, what changes you need to make and what approach you can take to correcting those mistakes. And the simplest way that I've found is by starting on land. And I mentioned last week and the week before the concept of land drills. Well, the idea would be here for the pull to put yourself into the positions that you see the pros in on land, looking at yourself in a full-length mirror or the reflection of yourself in a glass window or something like that, or even put an iPad on a tripod so that you can see yourself in the iPad while it's filming you, and get into a precise position that you see these pros in, and lean on your paddle a little bit while you're in that position so you can feel it in your body. You can not just feel the position that you're in, but you can feel what it feels like, in your hands, up your arm and into the center of your body when you lean on the paddle. You can feel a bit of a load on that paddle. And my experience has been that finding these positions on land is really helpful in order to teach you what the positions are, right? And it makes it a lot more likely and a lot easier for you then to go out on the water and find those positions on the water. And I would suggest that, when you've identified what mistakes you're making and you start doing these land drills to try to correct them, you do them, for 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week, really meticulously in front of a full-length mirror. And then when you are able to get back on the water, whether it's, that week or whether it's in the spring, the more you've done these drills, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to find the position that you're getting into on land, the correct position. The more likely it becomes that you'll be able to find that position on the water. And I guarantee it will make a huge difference. And it's such an easy way to start to teach yourself good technique, because it's really hard if you just go straight to the board and try to look at try to find the position that you see the pros in, because as you're paddling, you're passing through this position so quickly, you never really have a chance to feel it and learn it. So this is the process I suggest that you take on through the winter, and and I suggest that you be fairly serious about it. The first is be a student of the sport. Find all this video, study it, and learn from it. And then the second is start to look at yourself and see how you're different. And then the third step is to start to put your body into the correct positions that you see the pros in their videos on land. Being really meticulous about it, and that will make it easier for you to do it on the water when you get on your board. It can be a daunting process for people. If you need help with it, there's a ton of resources on paddlemonster.com. I've worked really hard to create resources both about common errors and their fixes in different parts of the stroke. So in this instance, you'd be looking for common errors and their fixes in the pull. And then also for the land drills to make them really easy to understand, with videos that help show you how to do it. And so, if you're having trouble with the process, I suggest that you consult these articles, because I know they'll help you. I'm sure they'll help you. And then the last thing I would say is if you're still struggling with this a bit, consult a coach. And there are lots of good coaches out there that can help you through this process. But if you don't have access to a coach, or you're not certain about where to find one, you can reach out and book a technique consultation, and I'd be happy to help you as well. But I implore you to use this time of year, whether you're on the water semi-regularly or whether you're frozen off the water, use this time of year now to address these issues in your technique, because it will make it much easier to address them when you get on your board in the spring, and much more quickly in the season, you will find yourself paddling really well. You will have corrected your issues and you'll be paddling really well. Okay, so that's my tip for this week. Have a great week. Happy training, and I'll see you next week.